because we're going to switch to Banks, but the real topic here we're going to talk about is
other side of the river.
Trevor Penning is not a guard. I'm going to say this to you, and I want you to understand.
I've said it, you tell him.
Because he's not a guard. Furthermore, just use logic, okay? He didn't develop at left tackle. He was atrocious. You move him to right tackle, and he shows some development. He wasn't great. He wasn't good. He was average. He was serviceable. He was better than he was at left tackle. If you saw improvement in a player at tackle, why would you then move him to a third position in 4 years and reset that growth? That doesn't make very much sense. However, you have known that you do now see that Fuaga is a right tackle. He played it extremely well in college. He also then turned out and came out and played left tackle. So you have a guy that's capable of left tackle, right tackle. You're probably going to get good play. Kelvin Banks is the young buttery hotness. Where did they play him at for the rookie camp? They played him at left tackle.
Play him at everywhere but center.
They played him at left. They played him everywhere but center. He got snaps at right guard.
Yep.
So it's three scenarios. I think I've said Penning is either your starting right tackle, and then Banks will find his way to fit with Fuaga being a left tackle, or Banks is going to prove that he can't play left tackle, and you keep Fuaga at left tackle, and then you move Banks to right tackle, right? Or Penning does so well in his development that you keep Fuaga at left tackle and you insert Banks into left guard. Either way, you get a backup that is going to be a second or a first rounder, because if Penning stays on and you move Banks to left guard, that means Tyler Reduns is your sixth O lineman. He's your backup. He's a former second round pick. If it works the other way around and Reduns ends up playing left guard and either Banks or Fuaga is that right tackle, then your backup right tackle is also a first round pick. So the strength of the front five plus the depth got improved regardless. But I don't think you move Penning to guard.
I agree, and I think it also speaks to the long-term planning here, because even if Penning does well, I think the only way Penning is not right tackle is if, for whatever reason in camp, he looks to have regressed.
He can play. Yeah,
right
he regressed. Yeah,
he has to be the right tackle, but that doesn't mean he has to be the right tackle next year or the year after, because they've already said we're not giving him his fifth-year option, and there's no guarantee they re-sign him to begin with.
Right.
So even if you did, because I know there's going to be fans mad, well, that means we, drafted Banks as a guard in the top 10. No, you drafted a guy to probably play tackle, but maybe he doesn't start at tackle this year, but you've got 3 first-round tackles on the team. And as any team, you want to put the best guys on the field, and you're simply seeing a guy who is versatile, which is something that everybody here as a Saints fan should be used to, because Sean Payton demanded drafting versatile offensive linemen for 15 years. So that, I know, look, a lot of coaches have the same idea. Versatile offensive linemen are valuable. So even if Penning is good now, that's fine, because I don't know if Penning's going to be here next year or the year after. I don't think the team does, which means you're right back to Fuaga and Banks the entire time. So I don't really feel like it's hurting the team at all. You want to, it actually is great if Banks starts at left guard, because that means your 2 tackles are performing so well to get your top 10 pick on the field. You had to play him at guard.
You had to put him at left guard.
That's a good problem to have, not a bad one.
Yep. Yeah. You didn't draft a guard. You drafted a tackle, but if he's part of your best 5 at guard, fine, put him there. It doesn't mean his position is permanently going to be left guard. In fact,
and you're giving him NFL snaps. Yeah, it's not at left tackle, but it's NFL snaps. And keep in mind that Banks is a guy who even Duke Manyweather talked about and Brandon Thorne talked about being versatile and being talented to play both tackle and guard. Duke even said he could be a full-time guard. And keep in mind that, because the whole Penning to guard thing always gets lost because people just think, oh, big hunk of man, put him in way. No, guard is a very technical position, especially with things like 3 techs in the league now. And you look at what teams like Atlanta are trying to put together to stress the outside. But if you remember, Atlanta's game defensively has always been, especially past few years, twists and stunts. They want to get those speedy guys attacking inside. New Orleans has tried to do that, but they've been doing it with lumbering giants. When you look at guard, you can't just slot a guy there for the sake of slotting a guy, which is what Penning would be if you just throw Penning at guard. If you throw Penning at guard, you'll be frustrated. You finally saw him doing something well at right tackle. He wasn't playing great, but considering how long it took him to find his role, which, by the way, took Andres Pete time and people hated him forever for it, but he became a 3-time Pro Bowler. Same thing with Penning. If he finally took finding right tackle to be that thing, irony of it all being around Pete as well, hilarious, then let him be that and then decide afterwards. But either way, what you're arguing here is you've got 3 first-round tackles, and if that's 3 first-round talents that you can have starting on your offensive line, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, 3 first-round tackles. One of them has proven he's flexible. One of them has proven he's not flexible. One of them has proven that his position where he developed was right tackle. One of them has showed I get it. You want to get Banks on the edge. You don't want to see him at guard. And so you want to move, you want to find a spot for Penning, but it's not going to be guard. I'm fine with Penning being, again, either your starting right tackle or your backup.
Or your best
right
backup.
tackle.
Yeah.
Right. Because listen, the redundancy is there. Let's say he is your backup, tackle. Well, boom. If Fuaga starts at right tackle and then, Banks is left tackle, if something happens, Fuaga slides back over to left tackle. He slides in the right tackle. You still got damn near 3-4 first rounders on the field. So there's nothing wrong with him being your backup right tackle if that's how things pan out. Which means there's also nothing wrong with Kelvin Banks being left guard. You just literally want the best 5 players on the field, and whichever way that rolls out, your 6th offensive lineman is either going to be a first round or a second round talent.
And
you can't find any negatives in it.
And for those who are out there still negative about Banks, think of it this way. Remove the when he was picked and think more of the situation of 2024 Saints football. Like or hate Derek Carr. Why did he get injured? Because there was protection issues. Spencer Rattler. Like him or love him. Why did he have exacerbated struggles based on, what you would hope a rookie to have? Because of pressure problems. This team is trying to put talent, but that's all a first-round grade signifies, is this person was talented than his peer, more talented last year on tape. You're putting a talented player in an area that led to multiple quarterbacks either being injured or failing last year. Mm-hmm. Why is that a bad thing? Your biggest problem, sure, everybody wants to find their franchise quarterback, but your best franchise quarterback is going to not look very good if he's on his back the entire time. Take a look over at Carolina. You're trying to rebuild the trenches. And I know a lot of people want to go quarterback first, but a lot of other folks are on my side. We believe in the trenches first. Kellen Moore's a trenches first guy. And what you've done is you've assembled high first round, second round talent to rebuild that line. And that's what they're trying to do. So at the end of the day, does it matter if he's a first round, 9th pick, 10th pick, 11th pick, guard or tackle? No, what matters is the offensive line going to be better and play better? And if the answer to that is yes, that lets either one of these quarterbacks that I'm sure people have already chosen, because that's just how football works. Everybody's already picked what their quarterback is and who's better. I'm sure most of you aren't going to change your minds like me and Elias might over the next 3 or 4 months. But you want to have the offensive line be good. That way Shuck or Rattler have the best chance to succeed. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm putting this together because I want to give people an example of exactly what you're most likely to see. It's going to be likely one of these 3 things. You're either going to get Fuaga at left tackle, Banks at left guard, McCoy at center, Rees at right guard, and Penning at right tackle. Mm-hmm. Right? Or you're going to get Banks at left tackle, Redon's at left guard, McCoy, center, Rees, right guard, and then right tackle, Fuaga. Right? Or you're going to get Fuaga at left tackle, Redon's guard, McCoy, center, Rees, right guard, and then Banks at right tackle. Those are likely the 3 that it ends up formulating being. I don't see anybody. Ruiz is still getting paid enough money that I think his right guard spot is secure.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. And he's honestly played better as well over the past 2 years too. So
yeah, I think Ruiz is. So those are going to be your options of what it's going to look like, and all of those options are better than what we had last year. So there shouldn't be any complaints. Your quarterback should be able to stand up a little bit longer than he did last year. Can't argue with the pick.
Which is also why I'm completely okay with them going offensive line, because sure, draft that, great wide receiver you want to get in the first, even though almost none of them went and stuff. Ain't going to do you much if your offensive lines get up a sack in 2 seconds. So Either way, I'm fine with that. I really don't care the order. And I will also say, we talked about the coaching staff of the quarterback looks. I think the offensive line coaching staff looks really good for the Saints as well.
Yeah, based on I think you have Nugent returning. Is it Nugent or is it Wynn? I think it is Nugent. It's Brandon Nugent.
Yeah, you've got that. Then you still have Jari Evans here. So you got Brandon Nugent. You've got Evans, who is the assistant offensive line coach, a Hall of Famer, right? Like, we talk about having 3 quarterback minds for the quarterback development, but you've also got that in the offensive line area now as well. That's one of the areas of the past couple of years I feel like New Orleans has been getting better at, coaching offensive linemen. Because, there was a dip after we lost Armstead, after we lost actually, a couple guys. You didn't see the same elite offensive line play that you were used to seeing, especially in the Dennis Allen era. They're trying to shift back towards that. I like what you can get out of these guys, and I like the coaching staff around them. And then when you look at what Kellen Moore's trying to build in terms of like his offensive system, it's a little bit friendlier to the Saints offensive line because it meshes a lot better with what our running backs are in terms of players, the style of quarterback you're trying to see Kellen Moore work with in terms of what he's done historically. I think it puts a little less pressure on the offensive line to be this static semicircle all the time, perfect, look exactly the same, because of a guy who operates like a statue and usually takes a half tick longer. Me talking about Derek Carr. Derek Carr, again, Elias has said it, was, top 12 quarterback in his peak. But if you're not in the top 3 quarterback, what does that mean? It means your mental processing is probably a tick slow, and it probably means you're limited stylistically. Maybe you're a pure statue in the West Coast. Maybe you only work well in the scramble drill, which is kind of like Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler looks way better moving than he does sitting still. You've got some type of limitation. Right, but what Moore is trying to build around seems to put less of that pressure on the O-line, letting them be more natural and develop more together without them having that crap. Well, if I failed now, we're screwed, right? Because that kind of was how it was with Carr. If you let it through, that's it. Like, Carr's not going to make it happen in the scramble drill, and then Rattler didn't work his best until he's in the scramble drill. So either way, you're still failing. So I like what we're seeing this coaching staff be. Obviously, we're really trying to, I guess I'm a little bit too hype because we haven't even seen them in camp and preseason games yet, but I still look forward to what we're doing here. But a lot of that still takes the talent level. And that's the whole point of a Trevor Penning and a Fuaga and a Banks, because I know everybody likes to talk about it. Man, look at that 5th round pick. He's an Hall of Famer. It's why it doesn't matter that Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th or the 1st. But the truth is, there's a reason most top players at most positions are 1st round picks, because that means they're physically and mentally more talented than their peers. And that's what I see in a guy like Banks and a guy like Fuaga. You're drafting a guy who is talented pound for pound more than his peers. So it should work.
It should work. And I think Kellen Moore, I won't call him a quarterback whisperer, but being someone that has played the quarterback position, he just understands the best ways to put those guys in position to succeed. I will continue to say, from ever since I noticed this, I think what separates the top quarterbacks from the mid tier is not the arm strength, accuracy. They make consistently good decisions. And it stood out to me when I watched, I've always thought Matt Ryan was a good quarterback. What made me realize what stopped him from being great was when I watched the Super Bowl, and it was somewhere in the 4th quarter. Can't recall the specific play, but he should have spiked the ball or should have called timeout. I think a play came in late, and instead of him calling timeout to kind of get everything together, he decided to snap the ball, and the play went to pieces. And it's you know what? That's the reason he's not a great quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. And this is why this is a microcosm of Carr's career and his decision making. Okay, what anybody says. Diving for it on 2nd down was not smart. There was no reason to dive for 1st down when you would have been facing 3rd and 2, and maybe you could have then had a discussion about 2 down territory. Drew Brees doesn't do that. He politely walks out of bounds, lives to play another day. We're here with Derek Carr, and the reason he had moments of here and here always been his inconsistent decision making with the ball.
Derek Carr could easily give you a great game, throw you 2 or 3 tutties, but then he's going to have stuff like that cost him the season. I mean, honestly, it cost him his career. He's retired.
It's that is
and you get the idea behind it. Like in the spur of the moment, he's trying to do the quote unquote right thing and score the big play, but sometimes the big play is the wrong play. Sometimes you need to just take the 3rd and 2 and then throw the football or run the football if you were the Saints, but they don't do a lot of that last year.
Let's be honest here. I don't care how you try and how many quarterbacks do that. Just let's go over the year. How many quarterbacks have done something like that? You don't see it very often.
There are a couple, but those quarterbacks are so
players
good.
Have that style of play.
And they're so good they can make up for their mistakes. Like a Mahomes.
It's that style of play. Like I can see a what's the quarterback for Justin Fields. I can see a Justin Fields maybe doing that play. But Justin Fields is not playing outside of himself if he does do something like that. But I would never see someone who generally is a pocket passer, and we talked about it, or maybe we didn't. Carr never really looked like he wanted to actually run. He always looked reluctant to run. Like, he'd run if it was his very last option, but he always kind of looked reluctant to do it. So you run, and your inexperience in running shows up by you deciding to dive on a play that you didn't have to. I don't care how you paint it. There was literally no reason for him to dive other than to get the first down, but you still would have had 2 other downs to do it. At the very least, 1 down, and then you get maybe 2 yards and it's 4th and 1 and you make a critical decision. But guess what? At least you're still on the field.
He was playing home run ball. Instead of taking the single, use another sport here. Or it's kind of like, you need guys to make their free throws. Not everything's a 3. He was trying to shoot a 3 when he had a free throw. Like, whatever you want to word as, whatever analogy you want to use, it was too much. Yeah. Simple as that. It was too much. And when you've got an offensive line that became very patchwork and a team that became very patchwork, all of these are symptoms of a greater problem. And I think the problem for me, look, I've said my displeasure about Carr, but I've also said Carr gave the team the best chance of winning of any quarterback we've seen for like the past 3 years since Drew Brees. Hands down, he did. But at the same time, my biggest issue was always the leadership and what was being built in that facility. Now, we can argue about how much of that is Mickey Loomis or not, but my biggest irks and my biggest ires go all the way back to DA, which was his entire coaching style, his entire demeanor. It was much more passive, and that's fine. I'm not degrading him as a man. But in terms of as the culture and the coach, I don't believe it was working from top down. And everything that we've seen changed, including into this offensive line, is part of why I'm more confident now, why I think things will be better. I just think that what they're trying to do with the offensive line is purposeful. It's meaningful. It's not just we're trying to slot a guy in. It's, hey, we're getting talent and we're building. And that's kind of the thing for me, is there's a mentality of we're building something. Not here's how we do things. We're going to just try to put that there, make it work, and if it doesn't, we're just going to keep it moving. And that was DA's thing, right? How many phrases did we come up with from DA saying things, right? Mm-hmm. Just, we got to keep going at it. Just all these cliches that he would throw at you. You got to keep doing what you're doing. Who didn't love that one?
Chopping wood.
Keep chopping wood. That was his thing. Like, we're going to this is the system, and we put the cog in the system. If that cog breaks, we just keep the system going. That's not how it feels now. And if you've gotten to listen to any of the interviews, you've seen these people talking to media or even just themselves. It is we're building something. We don't have it all worked out, but we're building something. And that mentality alone has changed how I view this team. Still don't think they're going to win 10 games, but I'm more confident, or I have the ability to have confidence of what it can look like 2 or 3 years from now.
I feel so bad Dennis Allen is catching strays.
But I'm not, because I'll be very clear. Like, Dennis Allen is still an amazing defensive coordinator. I bet he does great this year as a DC. I honestly believe he will. But I don't believe he's a leader of men for an entire organization. I just don't. I still think he's a good man. But the truth is, what we're talking about this week with Derek Carr is still Dennis Allen, because talk about who's my guy. That was his guy, right? So like, again, my whole ideology is all of this came from the top. Shit rolls downhill, right?
It's a turn page.
And you had to clean out of all of this. And I think they have. And I feel like they're building something. And that includes what Jeff Ireland and the scouting department did, going after guys like Banks. You're building something.
It's a turn page, mostly, because when it came to, and this is why these quotes exist about Dennis Allen. This is why the annoyance with the keep chopping wood. Allen was as tone deaf as Carr was. They were both equally tone deaf.
They're good matches for each other.
To the city, to the team, how they engage. You never heard Dennis Allen refer to, as Who Dat Nation or anything. Meanwhile, you had Sean Payton writing a love letter to the city to let us know he wasn't trying to finagle his way out of here. Dennis Allen was pretty tone deaf. And I think...
the man apologized to your division rival.
Loomis gets a bad rep, but I also tend to... It's like people have to accept that Loomis is not one of those GMs that tries to run the show and do everything himself. He
doesn't play
collaborates. He collaborates. So that means that a lot of the issues you saw were because one of the decision makers on the team was Dennis Allen, and he wasn't a great decision maker. And Mickey Loomis is allowing him to make decisions, and he's also trying to support his decisions. So you can't give Mickey all the blame, because he is the type of GM that does try to at least do a tandem setup with whoever his coach is. He's not one of those GMs that's just like, look, I put everything on the table, you figure out how to work it. No, he actually gives, and this is why the organization is constantly referred to, even though people think we're a terrible organization, this organization is constantly referred to as one of the top 5 organizations in this league. We've come a long way. Mickey gets a bad
for our
rep,
cafeteria, and they need to fix that.
That was embarrassing. People want to be here. So
I agree.
Look, all strays aside, we can agree that we're excited about the future of this team. I feel good with Kellen Moore. Listen, Kellen Moore doing something as simple as tearing down the old messages that were in the locker room dating back to Sean Payton's career, when Dennis Allen never did that. All the way back to finding out that the way the locker rooms were arranged were still the same way from COVID. Another thing that Dennis Allen just left sitting there. I enjoy the fact that Kellen Moore is trying to do his own thing and walk his own path.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that maybe Dennis Allen, maybe it was forced on him to kind of be the carryover. Maybe that's not what he wanted to do, but it didn't work out for him without.
He is, though. I just feel like that's part of who DA is. I feel like that's just kind of, again, I'm not insulting him. Look, not everybody can be an alpha dog, and that's fine. I think that's just kind of who he is. Like, I really do believe that Chicago's going to see better defense this year because he's back in his natural position. He's like, look, there are hierarchies and there are guys, and he's a middleman. Like, in terms of management, he's not made to be the top dog, but he's a damn good right underneath.
I think it's details. I think leaders normally pay attention to a lot of details. The good ones, they want things their way, and they want things all the way down to how the parking lot
right
is
or
painted.
wrong.
They pay attention to the detail. DA let so much stuff slip through the cracks that he just didn't care about. That is like, so, again, leaving all of the same Peyton references up and all of the do your job stuff, all of the stuff that had been in the locker room for the last 15 years. Any new coach should come in and want to do his culture, or at least even work your way to changing stuff. But those were the minor things that he didn't seem to be inclined about. And so it's very refreshing to see Kellen Moore paying attention to those little bitty things, because those are the things that were missing. I think what I like to refer to it is Sean Payton was a very paternal influence. And that paternal influence pays attention to certain things. And I think DA was more of a maternal influence. And I say that because he was great at building that defense up.
Yeah.
DA brought that defense 2016 to where we were before it started to collapse because it was getting older. He clearly can build a defense for you. He can relate to his players. His players obviously want to play for him. However, when it came down to him actually having to be a coach of all of it and having his hands on all of it, it seemed to be too much for him. And so, yeah, man, we're here now. Kellen is here. We're here. And I don't know if we're gonna win, 6 to 8 games this year. Like I said with the draft, I do feel like this is a team that may not win, a high total, but I don't see them losing or only winning 5 games again.
Yeah,
that I think I do not see
injury
them. They
bug
only win
aside,
5 games.
all that, right?
Even with injuries, because of the job they did with the draft,
they also have a weaker schedule because they only won 5 games too. So
last year, okay, we added Brandon Cooks. Okay, last year when our 2 receivers went down, who was the 3rd receiver that came up?
You mean when we had to call Marquez Valdes-Scantling off the floor?
No, listen, before we found Marquez, who were the receivers that we were throwing to? Cedric Wilson, and undrafted rookie. Okay, is Cooks gonna come in and you expect him to be? No, but Cooks is gonna be better than Cedric Wilson and probably gonna be better than that undrafted rookie. So this team, when you look at what they did for the offseason, or at least free agency, draft, and then what they can do post-draft, more than anything, they filled in the depth of the team. So even if they did
it's that middle class we talked about,
that middle class. If even in some random way that they had that same kind of injury luck, that bad injury luck, because of what they did with rebuilding the middle class, I still don't see them losing the way they did last year.
I hope you're right.
So this is.
I am trying to hold things without getting too hyped because we're still in May. But it's like I just said, this is the mentality at the facility. How they're approaching things is different. And to me, that's the biggest positive. To me, and again, y'all know me, I am team never tank. I think they should try to win every game. And that's why I was partly okay with Derek Carr coming back, because at the end of the day, I think winning every game matters. So I don't want them to lose 5. But I'll say this, if this type of season is the season where you only win 5 games, I'm okay with it, because I believe the direction is where the team has needed to be for 3 years, which is finally rebuilding our identity, right?
Admitting,
Because Peyton and Breeze are gone. Like, we need to finally stop crying about it, stop saying their names, and move on. And DA, in a lot of ways, did not move on. That doesn't mean that DA wasn't talented in a lot of ways. I still will talk at the top of the roof of how good he is as a DC. And I wish in fantasy land I could have kept him as a DC. Like, I know that's not realistic at all, but I wish I could have kept him as a DC. But he just wasn't the guy when it came to creating a new culture. Certainly wasn't going to continue the culture that Sean Payton had, because if you ever look at either of them, they're diametrically opposed styles of people.
To each other,
which means they work great together.
Yeah.
But they work great together because DA answered to Peyton. It's not I've always believed you need a guy closer to Peyton than DA as a head coach, because Peyton, aside from the whole juicy fruit and him being goofy and aggressive at times, and, being like a fan and flipping off Minnesota and all the other stuff, very, very detail oriented and very, this is my way, to a fault.
And commanding,
because he had flaws, but it was very much, these are my details for everything. And this is how we're going to do it. And if you don't like it, you can heck off. Right. And that's just not how DA was.
That's exactly the type of relationship you would probably have with your father.
Yeah.
It's my way. You're going to do this way. This is your expectation. Or you're going to get your own somewhere. That's that paternal influence, I think, is necessary. I haven't fully been able to gauge if Kellen Moore has that, but he's showing traits.
You can see the attention to details, though.
There's traits there. I haven't seen enough of him and how he relate, but you can also tell he can command a room. You can tell when he speaks, because he knows what he's talking about, people listen. It's one thing to speak and then people, they don't trust you. So it's like, oh, you can talk and nobody really cares. But because he's actually smart and then demonstrates it, people then listen because they now trust that intelligence because there's something backing it. So I think time will continue to reveal his
I like how you worded that.
But for right now, he does have certain traits that I think will make him a better football head coach than what DA was able to offer.
Yeah, because he's definitely different than like the aura you'll see from Coach Campbell in Detroit, right?
Right.
Very different. But at the same time, you can be a leader in different ways. And the thing with Moore is he is very detail oriented. And if you ask him a question, he knows the answer, right?
Right. Yep.
Whereas DA might not, but he would just give you a cliche to get through it. And that's not what Moore gives in terms of his impression as an offensive coordinator or as what he could be as a head coach. And I do want to be very careful about overhyping a guy in May. We do need to see how he actually operates. But from the outside, kind of the same way we're talking about Shuck and Banks having these great traits as rookies, Moore has great traits, right? Like there's a lot to really like about him and hope that he can pull off this. But for me, one big thing in coaching is definitely details and how you carry yourself. And while he is not this like junkyard dog type of like traditional manly football player head coach, which is what I would kind of give to Campbell, very good guy, very empathetic guy, but he's almost like a high school coach, but at a head coach level at the NFL. Like just if you had that head coach style in high school where like all of them, they're just the same coach, just slightly different. He's that guy, but at an NFL level. And Moore is more of the almost newer style, slightly nerdier, but not nerdy, more of like he golfs on the weekends
like
type of a guy. Yeah, exactly. Like, maybe he's on a round of tennis and he'll go play ball with you. He's not going to be great, but he's going to do it with you. He's that style of guy, but he can still lead a room. So
what separates Moore from me from Allen, and this was just the impression that I got just based on the data, Allen didn't seem to connect with all of the players. He didn't seem to have those.
He was respected but not loved.
He was respected. It was almost like he was kind of like, I guess maybe the word I'm looking for is he seemed to be kind of emotionally distant in a way. And Moore seems to be the exact opposite. He seems to understand that, listen, the players really appreciate when they know you care for them and they know that you're investing in them and they know that you're trying to make them the best that they can be.
I hate to keep the strays going, but to prove positive of what you're saying, look how he handled the Jamal Williams situation. No empathy to the players at all. There's so many ways you could have awarded that press conference after the fact that didn't throw your
tone deaf. He was tone deaf.
Yeah, it was because your own look, and I'm not even saying the players are right because I get it. The players should follow the head coach. I get that argument, but the head coach should also always have the players back, always, bar none. So it's stuff like that. And again, not speaking negatively to DA's even character, just you don't see, like I can't see Moore doing that. I can see Moore chewing the fire out of Cameron Jordan, Jamal Williams, Jameis Winston in the locker room after, but absolutely no way he would do it at the podium.
He looks to me somebody that would have fun anyway. Kelvin Moore seems like a person who be like
to your point,
okay with the fun.
He's going to be he looks like the guy who will be the leader, but at the same time personable enough to be approachable by his players, right?
To be a peer, to be a leader, but then also to be able to connect on like a peer level. Like
which is very difficult.
I mean, it's got to be a point because Cam Jordan is a year older than Moore. So he's got to trust him to be his coach, but then he's also still capable of relating to the players. And I think that's important because you see it in Denver with Sean Payton. You know how much the players rave in Denver about Sean Payton, about how they like how he's engaged. And
not just counting the ones that are former Saints, which there's like a dozen.
Well,
of them. Yeah, not just them.
This is players. This is players that were talking like they noticed that like they were excited to see Payton wearing Jordans. It's like the little details that shows that he cares and that he's connected and he wants to connect with his players. You just never got that from
That's something he learned in New Orleans.
Did you hear the music? So. Did you hear the music in the dome? After Dennis Allen took over? It was terrible. It's terrible. It's horrible, atrocious, putrid, nasty, disgusting, awful.
They still play Stand Up and Get Crunk, though, which, can we retire it already, please? But no, for real. Man, and I want to point, Sean Payton learned a lot of those details in New Orleans. Because if you remember in 2006, the photo of him and Drew Brees, and he's wearing them like Walmart penny loafers.
Yeah.
Sean Payton grew up. He became better. And look, that's what I hope happens with Kellen Moore. So.
Fair enough.
We forget young Sean Payton 20 years ago, but man, it was 20 years ago.
It was. Hell, I forget my young self 20 years ago. Jeez.
I know. But on that note, we've talked about the offensive line. We've talked about Kellen Moore. And we'll talk about a lot more. But we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, because I hated that Dennis had to catch some strays.
I don't.
We didn't even listen. We didn't even discuss this as a topic before we came home.
We didn't. this wasn't planned. This just happened. I felt bad
This just
halfway.
happened.
Like I gotta say nice things about D. I hate that I'm dragging him through the mud right now, but it's just the guy wasn't a great head coach. But gosh, I really do appreciate him. Part of our Super Bowl team and part of some of the best defense I've ever seen in New Orleans.
The best way I can say it is all coaches are good head coach. I mean, no. All coaches or all head coaches are good coaches. You have to be a good coach to get looked at it to be as a head coach. However, all head coaches are not necessarily great coaches. And that's what separates the part. Like if you can be a good coach to even get to be a head coach, you have to be at least a good coach. But then you have to then at least take that next step to be great. And I think there were opportunities for DA to take that step. Listen, you can look at him supporting his players on the field on that running back play with Jamal Williams. That was a opportunity for him to connect with his players
and the city on that one.
Right? Mickey had the right thing. He saw Dennis Allen as being a good coach, as someone that you can develop into a head coach. That was the whole point. I hate that people say this about when he was comparing him to Belichick, because it makes me think like people can't be that idiotic to not understand the concept of what Mickey was saying is that sometimes it takes time to develop guys and patience is necessary. It's no different with a draft class. Sometimes it takes 3 years to see that draft class. And so you have to be patient.
His demeanor was you'll get me on a tap, but there's the demeanor in that conversation that was the problem. Not even the names he was dropping. It was the gun smacking, like, look, you don't know.
I can get past that if I can understand what he was trying to say. And I understood it. I may not have fully agreed with it. I think a lot of people wanted to see Allen gone after the debacle with the Falcons. I think if we would have just went ahead and moved on then, I think people would have been fine then, because I think we'd all seen enough right after that. But I also understood that he saw a good coach and he saw that there was a opportunity to develop him into a good head coach. But the issue with development, no different with players, it's probably the same with coaches, because you're developing people. They either develop or they don't. And I think he poured the resources into Allen, and I think Allen just missed on opportunities that he could have taken to take the next step. He didn't take them. They were there. They were presented. He didn't take them. So it's on Mickey for the hire, but it's still somewhat on the coach to actually take the steps when they're there. So he's 1-1 right now on coach hires. We'll find out about Kellen real soon.
Hopefully, too. We'll catch you on the next Who Dat Confessional podcast. We're out.